Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth, its sacrament, and service, its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Amen.
Da pacem Domine, da pacem Domine, in diebus nostris. Da pacem Domine, da pacem Domine, in diebus nostris. When will the fighting cease? When will we live in peace? When our love breaks boundaries? When will the fighting cease? When will we live in peace? When our love breaks boundaries? When will the fighting cease? When will we live when our love breaks boundaries? When will fighting cease? When will we live in peace? When love breaks boundaries.
I don't know the origins of this story, but I heard it a long time ago, and it's always remained with me. The punchline is, so what if he was disillusioned? That just means that he was illusioned in the first place. Becoming a mature adult means, in no small part, to become disillusioned about that which we were originally illusioned. Do you remember the first time you realized that your omnipotent parent was just a regular person who didn't know everything after all? My father was a very domineering figure in our childhood lives, and for years he was an infallible god to me. He used to quiz my siblings and me at dinner, and then he'd bellow at my mother, "Shirley, get a subscription to Newsweek. These children aren't being taught anything at school." One day, I caught my dad in a bluff, correcting us when he himself didn't know the answer. It wasn't just that my dad was incorrect. Anyone can make a mistake. It was the fact that he was so certain of himself and so wrong. The shock I felt lasted for days as I experienced that emotional ejection from the Garden of Eden known as childhood innocence. When God cast Adam and Eve out of paradise, he assigned an angel with a flaming sword to guard its gates. You can never go back. I came later to understand that my father, who respected integrity, intelligence, and education more than any other quality or accomplishment in a person, was faking it because he was insecure, because he felt that he needed to know everything for his children, and also because he wanted to push us into being more educated than he himself was. To this day, I have a special dislike for intellectual braggarts and poseurs. There's nothing wrong with knowing that we don't know. But our increasingly polarized positions in society have resulted in everyone feeling we have to be experts all the time. Meanwhile, where are those who quietly pursue actual knowledge and understanding? I have to constantly remind myself to do those things because the zing of certainty in reaction to ignorance is a big temptation. Life is a process of being illusioned and then disillusioned. In the end, like the song goes, there ain't nobody here but us chickens. And we realize that even the best of families and the most sacred of institutions are led by just plain people who are often fallible and foolish. You remember the moment that little Toto ran up to pull back the curtain on The Wizard of Oz, and you suddenly saw that that big, terrifying talking head was just a special effect run by a little guy pulling some levers. America has felt that way to many of us in recent years, but with much more sinister consequences. A question remains that is much like the question left in the decades after people realized that, for instance, hail was not a sign of God's wrath, but a weather event caused by droplets of water freezing together in thunderclouds. That question goes something like this. Do we revise what we thought we knew, or do we insist that our old beliefs are still true? And when it comes to America, that has been made into an idol in so many of our minds, do we smash the idol? Do we create something new, or something in between? Another option is to become tired by the debate and opt out of it entirely. This is a legitimate choice to make when it comes to personal life decisions, but when it comes to our shared life, and so much of life is shared and relies on sincere engagement by people of goodwill, to allow disillusionment to keep us from involvement is not just problematic, but dangerous. Lead me not into temptation. If you are feeling heartsick and disillusioned this Memorial Day weekend about our civic life in America, me too. As I write this, I am angry, but not at all surprised that the Senate has put the kibosh on an investigation into the January 6th insurrection of the Capitol. I'm disgusted by the right-wing extremists in power. I'm horrified by the threat of Trumpism, but I know that it's not going anywhere. Whence do we take our cue for how to respond? There are those who say it's useless to try to work against the powers that be. There's too much corruption, and the propaganda, conspiracy, and fear and hatred mongering forces are too well funded, too deeply entrenched to fight. Let us stay home and tend our gardens. Tell that to Stacey Abrams. I can't. Tell that to that lunatic representative from Georgia, I don't even want to say her name, who recently compared mask mandates to the Nazi policy that required Jews to wear yellow stars at all times. Do you think we can just leave power in the hands of people like her? We cannot. I will not look at someone like that and say, "You're fine. I will do nothing to oppose you." Meanwhile, there are hundreds of thousands of graves decorated with red, white, and blue flags this weekend. And for the soldiers whose bones rest there, I do not think we can sit out the battles for our future as a nation. Whatever our age or position in life, we can and must engage. To those who say, "I don't like politics," I would respond, then your life must be pretty comfortable. Can you consider engaging on behalf of those whose lives are not? For those who say, "Why are we talking politics in church again?" I respond, because the church, as an ancient institution, has always been concerned with the full flourishing of all beings as they grow into harmony with the divine, which is to say that the Church is, has been, and always should be concerned with how policies and laws either promote or impede freedom, justice, equity, and compassion. Spiritual life is not a thing apart from actual life. What it does is prepares us to be part of actual life. Nationalist and fascist ideologies are on the rise around the globe. It's a trend. History is packed with those swings from communitarian instincts to tribal polarities. And no matter which place a society happens to be in, there is always a portion of that population that will feel it has been cast out of Eden and its vision of the world trampled and interfered with. So you're disillusioned. It just means you were illusioned in the first place. The war dead who fought for this country's freedoms had very different ideas amongst themselves, individually, about how those freedoms should ideally play out. And they had ugly ideologies as well as beautiful vision among them. We cannot romanticize those men, and much more recently in our history, women and transgender troops, because they died in what we call the service of our country. But we do owe it to them to care about the ongoing project that is America. And we never ignore that which we care about. We do not abandon it, even when it is hard, even when we are tired, worried, or profoundly disappointed. In the musical Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton is at the moment of his assassination by a bullet shot during a duel with Aaron Burr, his close colleague and political adversary. As the bullet that will kill him approaches on stage, that was in the form of a dancer slowly crossing the stage toward Lin-Manuel Miranda, who composed the musical and played Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton sings, "Legacy. What is a legacy? It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. I wrote some notes at the beginning of a song someone will sing for me. America, you great unfinished symphony, you sent for me. You let me make a difference, a place where even orphan immigrants can leave their fingerprints and rise up. I'm running out of time. I'm running and my time's up. Wise up, eyes up." America sent for all of us. Unless we are descended from the indigenous inhabitants of this land, we are heirs of those who were beckoned to be part of this project, this symphony, this democracy. It hurts to have the curtain pulled back again in this era, to see how dirty, broken, destructive, and fragile its operations are. It hurts and is shocking to see so many other Americans crowded around that same machinery, proclaiming it a thing of beauty, all evidence to the contrary. It hurts. But while we need not be optimistic, which lives in expectation of a certain positive outcome, we can and should be hopeful, as hope is an orientation and it holds no false promises. I leave you with an excerpt from the poem "The Hill We Climb" by National Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman, which was given at the inauguration in January of this year.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just is isn't always justice. And yet, the dawn is ours. Before we knew it, somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. Yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll be forever tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare. It's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it.